Everybody, and welcome to another live weekly energy forecast. So in these videos we have a little look at the energy of the season, the energy of the cycle of the moon, the astrological transits, and how all of these external energies kind of layer on top of each other to create our experience of the week, and a few tips and tricks, I guess, to start to actually work intentionally with these energies, and have awareness around what sort of themes that they might bring up for you this week. So this is an interesting week. It's not necessarily a week with particular tension like we have had over the past couple of weeks, but definitely a big week in terms of like a shift in tone. So this week we have Pluto finally changing signs, moving from the sign of Capricorn, where it's been bouncing back and forth between that and Aquarius for the past couple of years, maybe like 18 months, is now going to finally move into Aquarius for the last time, and it will not be coming back there at any point in our lifetime. Pluto is a generational planet, so it generally influences us on a much more collective scale. However, if it is working with a specific degree point in your personal natal astrology chart, that is, say, within 1 or 2 degrees of that sign, Pluto does move really slowly, then you will experience this shift in tone a lot more personally, and I'll get into that as we move through today's forecast. But this is a new beginning, and it feels a lot more final this time. We have had a flavor of Pluto and Aquarius over the last 18 months, a little bit of a hint of what themes it might bring up, but this is the final shift. We also have a shift in astrological seasons this week. So we are moving from Scorpio season, which is dark and deep and mystical and helps us get to the depths of things, to Sagittarius season. And Sagittarius season is a mutable fire sign. It's very energetic, it's vibrant, it's exuberant. So there's a real shift in tone, not only collectively, but also, I guess, on a more mundane level as well. And then we're also kind of, I guess, with the shift into Sagittarius season, moving into the final trimester of the autumn season. So generally the middle of the autumn season is a lot more, I find, or a lot more of any season really, is like they're generally ruled by fixed signs. Fixed signs are more intense. They don't really shift. There's more of a kind of like consistency, and I guess that's like the peak of the journey. And then as we move into the mutable sign at the end of the season, that's when I guess is time to start reflecting, wrapping up. And this is a great week for reflection as well. Like, this isn't always timed this way, but we're headed towards the last quarter moon. So we're coming off the back of that full moon that we had on Friday, I think it was. And then the moon starts to descend in its cycle, moving towards the last quarter moon, which is all about shedding, letting go, decomposing. And that is the phase of the moon that's associated with the autumn season. The peak, the full moon, is associated with summer. But as we come off the back of that full moon, there's still a lot of light around. Now, this week, there's not particularly that much astrological energy, where usually this is the time where I would say it's a great time to get clarity. This week, I would say it's a lot less around like mental clarity and seeing things clearly, because there are a few astrological transits that might skew that, but almost a really great time to start to reflect. Like, there's light around. It's given us the opportunity to see things, not necessarily with clarity, but we can have gratitude for what has come in the past few months, what's come up for you in the autumn season. This is the season of shedding and letting go. So there's often, at this time of year, it can bring up for people that something, it can highlight things that need to be let go of. It can highlight habits, behaviors, beliefs, areas of life that need to be kind of excavated and then to move on. And this is a great time, as we're moving into this last trimester, to have a look back. Like, what treasures are you taking with you? What was important? What has this season brought up for you? And as we use this last trimester, it's a really great time to start wrapping up and tying up loose ends. As we move towards that winter solstice, that really is a very much a new beginning point. That's the period of time that when we step over the threshold into the new year, in a sense. So really, this is an opportunity for us to make space, to clear out what isn't serving anymore. So we then have space to dream in the new. When we don't have space, when we're too full and clogged up in our energy, in our bodies, in our lives, you know, whatever way you want to look at it, that can stop us and block us from actually creating something new and moving forward. So this is almost like, you know, as we've got this light of the full moon now, is a great opportunity to look at what the season's brought up for you, look at what is asking for your attention, what's present in your life that's asking for attention and focus. And then this next month, before, as we head up to the winter solstice, we can really make the most of this time, tie up those loose ends, clear out anything else, the dregs of anything that needs clearing out, so we can then step into a new cycle fresh and ready to dream in something new. So before, let's dive straight into the astrological transits of the week, the highlights. So Monday, the 18th of September, which is today, again, like astrology is flux. So yes, we will feel this at its intensity today. However, usually a day before, a day after, or depending on how slow the transit's moving, a couple of days before, a couple of days after, we will experience these energies. So this is not absolute, but it gives you an idea of when the peak of this energy is happening. So on Monday, the 18th of November, the Sun in Scorpio trines Neptune and Pisces. So this is a day where intuition can be heightened or utilized. When we have trines, the Sun is self-expression, it's you, it's your vibrancy, your ego, and then Neptune is the planet that kind of like obscures. There's no like tangibility within Neptune. It's glamour, it's fantasy, it's dreaming. So when these like self-expression and this like dreamy spiritual ethereal planet come into a trine, which is a really supportive aspect, this can be a day where your intuition is heightened and you can really tap into that and use that to kind of navigate life or get clarity around something that you perhaps haven't had clarity around before. This could be a great day for healthy flow of emotions or emotional expression. So, and this, like, emotions drive motion, right? So, you know, I think some looking at emotions, we're thinking, like, I think sometimes we separate emotion and action, right? Action is like logical and practical, whereas emotion is like, although that thing that you just deal with in the background, or that thing that you're trying to cultivate joy or whatever. But actually emotion drives motion. And that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients with ADHD, is getting them to connect with how it would feel to have achieved something, right? So it's not that this kind of like fluffy woo-woo part of yourself that needs like care and attention, like emotional expression and connecting and getting emotional clarity, not mental clarity, right? Emotional clarity, or getting emotional connection with a goal, with an action, with a person, with whatever it is that you want in your life. That can be an incredible use of this energy. So this is a day where we could really kind of, I guess, express ourselves clearly in terms of emotion. It could be a great day for a conversation with somebody, to express how you're feeling, self-expression, or again, you know, any form of self-expression, which can be like art, poetry, whatever it is, like, it can help you process and also connect that emotion with motion, with action. And then on the same day, we have Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini. Now, these planets are in mutual reception, which means they're in each other's signs. So even though they're technically in their detriment, so when a planet is furthest away from the sign that rules it, it's kind of really, really far away from where it's comfortable. So it's not very happy there. That's why it's in detriment. It doesn't like to be there. So Jupiter, it does well in Sagittarius, and it's in the opposite side of the zodiac, which is Gemini. Mercury does brilliantly in Gemini and is in the opposite side of the zodiac, which is Sagittarius. But because they are in each other's signs, there is a supportive element to this, even though usually that would be a little bit more of a challenging placement, because they understand each other and they can see each other, right? But oppositions do bring a little bit of tension. And I think that this is like Mercury in Gemini, like Mercury in its home sign of Gemini, when it's most comfortable, it's hard, cold facts, information, whereas Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is like, they're both in the opposites now, but Jupiter in Sagittarius is a lot more about adventure, exploration, kind of understanding, possibility, right? And it's all about, there's no truth. That's why it's philosophy, it's religion, because it's not necessarily like hard, cold fact, but it's theories. It's understanding something and then expanding into the like the next level of understanding of something else. So there's no fixed truth, whereas in Gemini that is, a Mercury in Gemini, that's the case. It's more fixed truth, facts, right? So when they're in opposition and they're in the wrong signs, well, not wrong, but they're in opposite signs, they're in mutual reception, there can be a real sense of like lacking of emotional, like mental clarity. So this is a day not to assume that things are fact or things are true. There might be, I guess it's a day to be open. And this is why I was saying, you know, even though there's a lot of light around with this full moon, we can think that we're getting clarity on something, like mental clarity of like, this is it, this is the action plan, this is exactly what we're going to do. There might be a little bit of a false start with that. Things aren't as clear as they might seem, especially now because Mercury is in its pre-retrograde shadow. So Mercury goes retrograde, which when it moves backwards in the sky 3 times a year. And that's often when things can happen. Like we can get like lapses in communication, things can go a bit haywire, we can have issues with technology, lots of different, like local travel, lots of different things like that. So Mercury retrogrades is when things kind of go inwards and go backwards, and it's difficult for things to move forward because they happen so regularly. These are the retrogrades we often feel the most, and they're a lot more mundane and they affect us on a more personal level in our day-to-day lives. So when Mercury is in its pre-retrograde shadow, it's going to go retrograde on the 25th of November, so about a week or so from now. There is a sense of, you may think that something is clear, but because Mercury is going to go back over the degree point that it's at now, there might be a revisiting here. So again, just be open. It's okay if something comes up and you're like, this makes sense. Just give it a bit of time. I think, like, wait for the energy to shift. If you don't need to, if you are kind of doing things, triple check, like contracts, any like written agreements, anything like that, just make sure that things are right and that you're seeing things clearly, because there is a sense of things being a bit skewed. Okay, apologies. My computer just completely black screened me in the middle of that live stream. So we're back. So I'm going to get straight back into it. So Tuesday, the 19th of November, Pluto moves from Capricorn to Aquarius for the final time. So this is a huge shift in tone collectively. Generally, when Pluto moves into a sign, it brings up something big. So Capricorn, which is big banking, structures, institutions, governments, things like that. When Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008, we had the 2008 recession. So it can bring, when it kind of first enters into a sign, it can bring up themes. Like when it first moved into Aquarius about 18 months ago or so, we started to see like chat GPT, just suddenly there was a huge explosion of AI. So Pluto can bring up themes of technology. It can be revolutions. During the last time we had Pluto in Aquarius, we had the French and the American Revolution. So it's very revolutionary energy, Pluto in Aquarius. It is also it can be very community focused. It can be very technology focused. So it's going to really shift a tone from, you know, our focus on our institutions, governments, banking systems, money, kind of more, I guess, tangible, practical elements of our collective, of our societies, to a more technological focus. And we can see big shifts in medical equipment, lots of different things like that. So I guess really, you know, this isn't like a huge amount of thing to prepare for. It's just knowing there is going to be a shift, and being aware of that and staying grounded as we ride out that shift in energy. What I would say is, for the people who have any planets or points in the final degrees of cardinal signs, so I would say 28-ish, more 29 degrees of Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, then you have been undergoing a Pluto transit for the last 2 years. I also have my sun at 29 of Aries, so I felt this massively. So if you have any planets or points around those signs, around those degree points, then just have awareness around the fact that this is really an ending now. So there was definitely from around September this year to Tuesday, so the 19th of November, there was a real sense of things feeling tougher, actually. Like the Pluto transit that began a couple of years ago, there was there was an intensification of it this time for me personally. I think because Mars was involved. So if you are feeling a bit burnt out, a bit overwhelmed, if things have kind of been thrown up in the air, if you're going through a bit of a dark night of the soul, then know that that has really now come to an end, right? We're still going to be coming off the back of it for a little while yet, probably another month or so. So you'll still be feeling the after effects of it, but that we really have shifted now, and that transit is officially over. For those of you who have planets or points at 0 to 1 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs, so that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, then you're kind of going to be beginning that phase. You would have already had a little bit of a hit of this about 18 months ago, and now this is kind of, you know, ramping things up a bit. You're moving into the next chapter of this transit. So again, they're not necessarily bad things. Pluto transits just bring a lot of transformation, always generally for the better and for the highest good, even if it doesn't always feel like it at the time. So just have awareness around that. And then on Thursday, the 21st of November, the sun moves into Sagittarius from Scorpio, where it's been for the last month. And as it moves in, it also gets a nice supportive sextile from Pluto and Aquarius as well. So this is like a new beginning of a new season, roughly like a month long. But also because it's been sextiled by that Pluto that's newly moved into Aquarius at 0 degrees, it gives a bit of a, yes, it's a new beginning, but then it's also like a double new beginning, like with an exclamation mark, because Pluto is involved there as well. So it's kind of the sun moving from Scorpio to Sagittarius brings a lifting. So Scorpio is deep and dark and explorative and intense and emotional, and it likes to get to the depths, uncover everything within the, you know, the deep dark lake that is represented by Scorpio. A lot about transformation, but almost like if you think of like the journey into the underworld, like it's definitely a journey that takes you into the depths of yourself, and then you kind of come out the other side. So Sagittarius season kind of brings us up and out, right? Scorpio, we go down into the underworld, and then Sagittarius brings us up and out, and there's levity again. So there's like Sagittarius is energetic, it's expansive, it's adventurous. It's all about exploration. So there's a real shift in tone. Like Scorpio to Sagittarius is a very, very different energy. It's moving from deep dark water to fire, and it's mutable fire as well. So it's not like Aries that begins things, or Leo that's like the long burning bonfire, but it's almost like the forest fire that should kind of pop up in lots of different places. So it gives it even more energy to an extent. It is mature. It's a bit more mature than the fire signs, which is why it's more philosophical. And it is also action oriented, of course, because it's a fire sign as well. So there's a lot more, I guess, vibrant energy that comes with this shift. And then also getting that support from Pluto almost feels like initiation, and it is a really big shift in tone. So again, there's a lot less about tension this week and more just a change, like a real new beginning in a sense. But not a new beginning like a full moon, just a real like initiation into a new phase and a new energy. And then Friday, the 22nd of November, Venus in Capricorn sextiles Saturn in Pisces. So this highlights like Saturn is practical. Saturn in Pisces is like Pisces is compassionate. Venus is the planet of relationships, but in Capricorn, it's sensible. Saturn rules Capricorn. So there's this sense of like practical yet compassionate approaches to relationships. So again, like a really, really good time for like a solution focused conversation with people that you are in relationships with. And this is on Friday. It can support building like solid, meaningful connection, blending that Capricornian structure with Pisces, like with the empathy, with the understanding, with the emotional intelligence, if that makes sense. Again, can also be a really, really supportive day for grounding in like pleasurable but also really helpful and practical like spiritual practices, things like that. I guess almost like in the Sufi tradition that I think I mentioned last week, like kind of bringing those lofty kind of spiritual ideas and ideals into like practical, okay, what does this look like in everyday life, like meditation, prayer, whatever it is that kind of gives you that sense of connection, but is also enjoyable, right? Because Venus is the planet of pleasure. So that's pretty much it for the significant practices for this week. Next week is going to be an interesting one. We've got Mercury stationing retrograde, as I mentioned before, which kind of starts this reversal and a revisiting. Um, so again, this is not necessarily a week for moving forward or getting clarity because we're going to be coming back here. So if anything comes up this week, pay attention because we might get a revisiting to it. So for this week, like again, we're right in the middle of our 21-day experiment. So where I would usually highlight some journal prompts and practices for people who are members on the Handpicked Life membership. I'm not going to get into that this week because again, we don't want to overwhelm with too much content, but I guess what I would really advise is like if you are working with this energy, if you're feeling the impact of this energy, that some of the most helpful things you can do this week is because we're in transition, right? The earth element is always present within the seasons when we're transitioning energy. And because we've got such a shift in tone moving into Sagittarius season, we've got Pluto moving signs as well. There could be a sense of a little bit of ungroundedness, and earth element practices and staying grounded during times of transition can be how we can navigate periods of change and transition with the most grace and ease, and to make the most of it. So this is the energy that keeps us strong and steady. So it can be earth element practices, lots of yoga with forward bends close to the earth. It can be just getting your feet on the earth, using the stomach meridians on the face to ground yourself, EFT tapping, lots of different things. So there's heaps of practices on the membership, like yoga, EFT, Qigong, meditation, that all work with the earth element. So for those of you who are members, if you're feeling called to draw on some extra practices apart from the 21-day experiment, then they are all there. And it is also a great time for reflection. So I think, wherever we are, members, we're wrapping up the experiment, we're coming to the end of that, but also because we're kind of transitioning into that final trimester, it's a great time to just check in, get clarity, good time for meditation, and just preparing for that final season of letting go. So like what treasures have the autumn season brought up for you? What are you taking with you? What are you grateful for? What has helped this month? So again, not about practical mental forward thinking planning, but more noticing and seeing what themes have come up. This is a great time to make the most of and help us kind of make the most of that last part of the autumn season. So I think that's everything that I wanted to touch on today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you in next week's forecast. Sorry if this has been a bit disjointed. I was filming this live and then I had to switch to Zoom because something went wrong with the software that I use. So hopefully it's not too all over the place. And yeah, we'll speak to you next week.